Alone at 90 Foot, Chapter 1. May 25th. My name is Pamela Mary Collins. I'm 14 years old and I'm lying on the white rock suntanning down by 90 Foot. I should be in English class, but Mr. Bartell was picking on me again, and I didn't want to see his face. Besides, I just need to be alone. I'm lying very still with my eyes closed against the sun. I feel like I am melting in my gym shorts, turning liquid, blending, baking into the surface of the granite, becoming part of it. And in time, if I lie here long enough, the mountain junipers will crack me open and work their way through me. They'll bring the soil from out of me and root themselves right here next to 90 Foot. 90 Foot is this natural pool in Lynn Creek, which runs through Lynn Canyon. It's called that because of the sheer rock walls that rise 90 feet high on either side of it. Down here, where I am, at the bottom of the gorge, the water is clear and green and it's cold. So cold, it is painful. It also moves amazingly fast because just before 90 Foot, the canyon narrows. Massive volumes of surging water have to squeeze through a slim gap in the rocks. Lynn Creek begins as snow melt high up in the mountains north of Vancouver. It mixes with rainfall and tumbles down the mountain. It crashes through the rainforest. It thunders into this canyon. It pounds against the polished granite, exploding from pool to pool. And if you're not used to it, I mean the rushing and the thundering and the violence of it all, it can be frightening. But I am used to it. I've been coming to Lynn Canyon Park all my life. I can't see it from where I am, but the suspension bridge crosses the gorge about a quarter mile down the canyon. And a long way past that is a smaller wooden bridge that crosses the creek just above the water. It's a bit out of the way, but when I want to get to the other side of the gorge, that's the route I take. I used to cross the suspension bridge. When I was young and we were on it alone, my mom and I would stop in the middle. Lynn Creek was 1,000 miles below us, cutting its way through the rock as it has for a zillion or whatever years. I used to feel sort of invincible swaying in the air above it, like I was capable of anything, like I could fly up there even with the peregrine falcons. Sometimes I scared myself by thinking that I might try. Right away, my knees would go weak and I'd grip tighter to the cable railing. Once I told my mom what I was feeling. She said I shouldn't worry. It was just my flight of fancy testing my common sense. My common sense would always win out. It is a dangerous place, though, and many people have died here. People have jumped from the bridge. One girl was killed while suntanning, much like I'm doing right now. Out of the blue, this giant boulder bounced down off the cliff and crushed her. Drunken teenagers have hopped the chain link fence and fallen into the gorge. People have drowned, held beneath the surface by the powerful currents, right here in 90 Foot Pool. Murdered bodies have been found rotting alongside fallen cedars, tangled in ferns and vines. Then there were some who just walked up the mountain and were never seen again. But I like it here. When I was in seventh grade, we studied the art of Emily Carr. We went to see her paintings at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Back then, I didn't think they looked very real. They were also, like, dark and haunting. The earth heaved up, and the skies hung down, and the trees swelled like purple waves. They were not straight lines and triangles like I thought trees in the forest should be. I have sat here for many hours since then, and I think I understand why she did them like that. She was giving them life by painting them as if they were moving. The forest, the sky, the water, even the rocks seemed to move. But what I remember more than her paintings was something her teacher read from her journals about how when you sit in the forest, everything appears still, but it isn't really. If you listen and watch closely, life is happening everywhere around you. It's only that the growth happens so slowly that you can't see it, like seeds popping open and leaves unfurling and insects burrowing under the soil. In silence, life keeps raging on. I guess that's why I like to come here. I never feel lonely. I've tried to get the same feeling sitting quietly in my room, but nothing ever grows in there. Except, as my dad would say, the pile of laundry in the corner and the dust bunnies under my bed. They could hold their own against a pack of greyhounds, he says. My friends, and believe me, I don't have many, think I'm a hermit for coming down to sit here by myself. I've tried to explain how nice it can be just to sit in the quiet of the forest. They look at me like I've grown a beard or something, so I don't mention it anymore. Like I said, I don't have many friends, but then that's nothing new. I never have. When I was little, my mom was my best friend. I'm an only child. I did have a sister once, for 8 months when I was 9. Her name was April. I don't remember very much about her except that she was always wet. They used to tell me how much she looked like me when I was a baby. I didn't see the resemblance. I have one picture of us together. I'm squinting into the sun, holding her on the swing in our backyard. She's hidden behind gigantic sunglasses. I remember when that picture was taken. I was ticked off because she was wet, and even though Mom knew it, she was forcing me to sit there while she took the picture. She thought it was the most adorable thing she'd ever seen. Yeah, right. A pea soaked lap is truly adorable. Then, 2 days later, April died of sudden infant death syndrome. It's called SIDS for short, and it's when a baby just stops breathing. When I was very little, before April, Mom used to take me for walks on the far side of the canyon. We'd cross the suspension bridge and follow the old logging trails partway up the mountain, picking salmon and huckleberries along the way. We both wore silver bells to scare away the black bears. We never actually saw any, but we stepped over plenty of droppings full of seeds, so we knew they were there. Of course, I imagined I saw them, or at least their shadows darting with the light among the Douglas fir. But then I imagined I saw a lot of things. I imagined I saw ghostly creatures rising from the fallen cedars, and I imagined evil beasts crouching in the hollows waiting to pounce on little girls. Mom would break off root licorice from the moss that grows on the vine maples and peel it for me to try. I didn't think it tasted much like licorice. But then I also didn't think the yellow skunk cabbage smelt like a skunk. In fact, I thought it was quite a beautiful plant and didn't think it deserved to be such an offensive name. Almost every time Mom would make a new discovery. Once she found a tiny sprig of wild holly, and you'd think she'd won $1 billion. My mom taught me how to make wreaths and ornamental trees with pine cones we collected. She also taught me how to bead. When I was 6, I heard the bell for school when I was still half a block away. I don't know why, I guess because I've always been shy and I didn't want everyone looking at me when I walked in late, but I turned around and ran home. Mom didn't even get mad. When the school called, she told them I had stomach cramps. I'd be there after lunch. Then she taught me how to bead a simple bracelet. We didn't talk about it, but it was like we were partners or something that morning. I got pretty good at beading. I do fairly intricate patterns now. I've made a lot of jewelry and belts and some purses. Not too long ago, I beaded the neckline of a plain white blouse. I have another hobby too. Whenever I go anywhere, I like to bring back a living piece of the place I've been. So I collect water, or when there is none, unusual stones, flowers, or even soil. I keep them in April's baby food jars. It's amazing how many mushy peas and carrots a kid can eat in just 8 months. But the jars are just the right size. I have water from the Lost Sea, this cool lake deep in the caves outside Knoxville, Tennessee, where my uncle lives. I have a jar of the Atlantic Ocean, which tastes the same as the Pacific. I have white sand from Sanibel Island, which is off the coast of Florida. We went there 3 years ago for Christmas holidays. I have red earth from Red Rock Park near Medicine Hat. And I have lots of local ones too, like crumpled sand dollars from Kate's Park and an arbutus leaf from Lighthouse Park. But those aren't nearly so exotic. Those were just the first I collected. I liked these scraps of nature. More than pictures. Pictures are flat and dead and become dated, so you get bored looking at them. But this, it is smells and tastes and the feel of a place that makes it part of you. I stayed with my aunt and uncle for 2 weeks after April died. Mom was in the hospital and Dad was forever working. He's an accountant. When he was at home, he was visiting Mom. After she came home, it was a long time before we walked in Lynn Canyon again. When we did, Mom wasn't nearly so much fun as she was before April. She didn't look around, but walked straight ahead with her eyes on the path. Dad said she had trouble concentrating and was depressed about April. But so was I. Emily Carr says nothing is dead, not even a corpse. It moves into the elements when the spirit has left. I told this to Mom, thinking it might make her feel better about April, but she just kept peeling carrots. I'm not even sure she heard me. I wonder what they're doing in English. Probably Mr. Bartell is reading a passage from Lord of the Flies, which we're studying. He has this pompous, affected way of reading to us, and then he stands smugly waiting for a reaction, like we should give him credit or something for these great works of literature, like if it weren't for him we wouldn't have the intelligence to discover them ourselves, or like he even wrote them. As if. His scraggy beard and bug eyes give me the creeps. Sometimes when he gets real excited and his face turns red reading Shakespeare or something, I'm afraid that if he got knocked on the back, those eyeballs might pop right out and come rolling down the aisle. And he's always trying to suck up to the popular kids, like Danielle Higgins. She's blonde and perky and petite, not like me, 100 feet tall with arms and legs dangling like a vine maple. He laughs at her jokes and marks questions she answered the same as me right, when I was marked wrong. Teachers like that are so lame. What they don't realize is that the popular kids still think they're losers. Last fall, my best friend since kindergarten, Joanne Robertson, got asked to one of Danielle's parties, and somehow I got dragged along. Her parents were out of town, and her 18-year-old brother was supposed to be looking after her. He was in the canyon at a bush party. Danielle was offering everyone her parents' booze, mixing it with orange crush and gulping it down by the tumbleful. I had one taste and nearly puked on the spot. Joanne drank 2 beer and a glass of Kahlua. She started acting like a complete moron, belching like a seal, and smoking 2 cigarettes at once. Then Danielle turned off the lights. People started pairing off, necking all over the floor and in the bedrooms. Even Joanne ended up with Carl Jenkins. I guess she was so drunk she'd forgotten his claim to fame was blowing a fart so loud Mr. Bartell called the custodian to check out the heating ducts. So I was left alone, swallowed into a beanbag in the family room, listening to the sweating and grunting and sucking noises in the dark around me. People can be such pigs. But I couldn't move without drawing attention to the fact that I was unclaimed. Although, believe me, if you saw what was left, you would know it was by choice. Finally, I got up the nerve, and after tripping over several bodies, which didn't notice me anyways, I made it to the front door. I put on my shoes and went home. Joanne really burned me. She told her mother she was staying at my house. She never did come home with me. She spent the night at Danielle's being cool, and she got away with it. I'll never be cool, and I don't want to even be. Not if I have to get drunk as a monkey and make an idiot out of myself to do it. I have some pride. I wonder sometimes what it is that makes us want everyone to like us. When I think about it, there are so few people that I really like being with. Why should I expect that everyone should like being with me? I don't even like to talk all that much. I mostly keep my thoughts to myself. I guess when it comes right down to it, I don't even like being around people. Emily Carr was a lot like that. She preferred her dogs and monkey and her white rat to the company of most people. I think Emily and I would have been very good friends. We could have sat in the camaraderie of the forest for hours, not speaking, she working on her paintings, and me beading, only stopping to comment now and again on the color of the lady slipper or a shift in the wind or a change in the sky, communicating in silence through our crafts. We might even consult one another. I just can't capture the mood of that little spruce over there, she might say. Take a look, Pam. What do you think? And I'd set my beating aside and study her painting. I'm impressed with the unity of movement, I'd say. Not because I know the least thing about art, but because I read that is what she aimed for. I think it looks just fine, Emily. Joanne was cool for about a month. Then one Saturday, she forced me to go to the mall with her and Danielle. God, it was boring hanging out in the food court, while Danielle flirted with all the guys, and Joanne tried to. Anyway, we were walking past Fairweathers, and I saw this really gorgeous peach sweater in the window. Try it on, said Joanne. No, I said, I don't have any money. So, at least you'll know how it looks on you. Danielle was still in the food court, so the two of us went inside. This 30-whatever woman with these giant fat lips opened the fitting room door for us. Joanne came in with me. No kidding, Pam. That looks incredible on you. I think you should get it. I told you I don't have any money, and my dad says I can't get any new clothes until the end of next month. I pulled the sweater over my head and tossed it to Joanne to fold while I put my shirt back on. And then, I couldn't believe it, she started ripping off the tags. What are you doing? They can't pin it on you if there's no tags to prove it was theirs. Pin what on me, Joanne? What are you doing? She didn't say anything. She just mashed the sweater in a ball, opened my purse, and stuffed it in. The tags lay scattered all over the floor. Come on, she said, grabbing my arm. Let's go. At the same time she threw my purse at me, she yanked me out of the door. I had no choice but to walk stiffly, and swiftly I might add, into the mall. Joanne, this is so wrong. I could have smacked her over the head, scratched her eyes out. I was so mad at her. I was hurtling through the crowd like a bowling ball, not sure of its lane. Then a hand clamped on my shoulder, nearly sending me into a somersault. I spun around by it to face the fat-lipped sales clerk. Let's have it, she demanded. Another clerk came up next to her. They glared at me accusingly. They stood as if they were ready to pounce on me if I bolted, or, if necessary, defend themselves if I attacked. I felt as loathsome as a 12-inch slug. I couldn't possibly deny I had taken it, not when I was holding the flaming evidence in my hot little hand. I opened my purse and gave them the sweater. Through the tears racing from my eyes, I could see Joanne standing in the doorway of a shoe store watching the confession of a thief with the rest of the crowd. At that moment, I hated her more than I'd ever hated anyone. Is this what it takes to be popular? I wanted to shriek. Is this what it takes to be noticed, that you reduce yourself to a slimy cheat? You fool, Joanne, you stupid fool. I'd rather be one pale grain in 20-mile stretch of sand than the one that catches the sun if this is how you do it. The clerk took the sweater. She asked me my name. In front of all those people, I stammered it out. I told her my entire three-piece name. It didn't even occur to me to make one up. I then slobbered on about how I'd never done anything like this before and would never do it again. Like, no duh. It was pretty obvious what an incompetent thief I was. She told me to make sure I didn't, and then left me quivering like a jellyfish to slither home and consider what a poor excuse of a human being I was. For a month, I raced Dad for the telephone. I was terrified that the store clerk would change her mind and look me up, determined that my father should know what a delinquent child he'd raised. Dad laughed, thinking I had a boyfriend. To tease me, he would sometimes beat me in the race. He didn't know how freaked out I was when he said hello. Joanne never apologized, but instead she became annoyingly nice, oozing over things like my hair, which was the same, long and brown, as it had always been. Or a couple of times she brought me stuff from the cafeteria that I didn't even want, like this gross raisin pudding that I wouldn't feed to a dog. Finally, I told her to quit groveling, that I forgave her, but what she'd done was a really jerky thing to do. She agreed that it was. A few weeks later, I noticed that she and Danielle didn't hang out much anymore. We didn't have a lot in common, Joanne told me. Besides, she has so many friends, she doesn't need me. I've watched Danielle since then. Know what I discovered? It isn't that she has a lot of friends. She just goes through a lot of friends. She uses people like Kleenex, then tosses them aside when she's finished with them. I have the goosebumps. I look up to see a thick swatch of gray cloud hovering above the canyon, and me. It's not much point lying here now. Besides, it's almost noon. I suppose I should go home, make some lousy sandwich or something, and head back to school. We start social dance and gym after lunch. Both the boys and girls classes have to take it together. The thing is, they make it so we get 30% of this term's mark just for showing up. Like anyone would go if they didn't use bribery. I know I wouldn't, if it weren't for my dad. I figure he's been through enough the last few years without me screwing up big time on my report card. The whole thing about school is like that, like I said before. I like to be alone. But I hate being lonely, and I mostly seem to be lonely around people. I'm always lonely at school. I'm lonely on a bus or in a doctor's office or even eating dinner at Nana Jean's with the whole family around me. Sometimes I sit in class with that talking head at the front, and I imagine my desk sinking slowly through the floor. And after I'm gone, the other desks shift like in some kind of dream sequence to cover my spot, and no one's the wiser. No one even notices I'm gone, particularly the head still talking at the front. I grab my backpack, jump the rocks, and start up the path leading to the canyon parking lot. It's a straight uphill all the way. The earth forms tall steps where it is trapped by roots and compacted by feet and time. It's quite a stretch. But soon I'm looking down on the part of the gorge where the water pours into a smooth tank, much like a granite toilet bowl. It looks very tropical. The water's so green and ivy dripping from the rock shelves above, you'd almost expect to see parrots fly by. But you'd have to be real confident to jump into that pool, and I'm not. It's way too dangerous. Which is why this whole area is restricted. Besides, it's directly below the suspension bridge. I never look up. It gives me the creeps. I've been studying this area very closely for the last year, noticing this bunch of ferns and that burst of buds. I wish I'd paid more attention in the past. Stopped and smelled the roses, maybe taken a few pictures. That way I'd know what was new growth and what had been here before. I wouldn't have to wonder about that huckleberry bush next to the chain link fence. Like, was it there a year ago last Tuesday when Mom jumped off the bridge? Or has it grown there since? Just a warning for future reference. Never be like me and take things for granted. All is forest around me, and I never really paid attention to it. I doubt there are forests like this anywhere you go in the world. I know for a fact there are no forests like this on Sanibel Island or in Medicine Hat. Could I describe it to someone in those places? Yeah, it's green, the trees are tall, and there are slugs 10 feet long on the paths. Big deal. That doesn't say anything about the way the tree trunks are so thick, your whole class could stand in a ring around them and still not be able to hold hands. or about the way the rain rolls from the big floppy leaves onto your head after a storm until you're soaked through to the skin, or how the smell of cedar warns you as the sun stretches its long rays warms you as the sun stretches its long rays through the Douglas fir to dry out the ground. My point is, it's important to remember details. Of course, if I were Emily Carr, I could just paint it. No words would be needed. I know what you're thinking. Why are you going on like that when your mother jumped off the suspension bridge? Sometimes I wonder that myself, but I don't really have a choice, do I? And of course, more importantly to you, you're wondering why she did it. Can't answer that one either. My dad tried to explain that had something to do with the way she felt after we lost April. I've always wanted to ask him more, but every time I try to, I can see that he might just about fall apart. I know he tries real hard to be strong for me, so I don't want to be the one to push and make him crack. He's got to feel he's a support to someone in his life. The school counselor, Mrs. Dalrymple, told me basically the same thing about Mom. She was very, very depressed. But I, for one, can only think that for some reason her common sense didn't kick in that day. She must have felt good, invincible up on that bridge, hundreds of feet above the pool, like she could fly with the peregrine falcons. And I guess that old flight of fancy just won out. Chapter 2. This is just so unreal, I can't believe it. Guess who's teaching us a social dance? Mr. Bartell. Miss Turner, our regular gym teacher, says he puts her to shame. That next to him, she looks like Mr. Bean on the dance floor. So, lucky us, he's offered to take the dance unit. While I, for one, am ecstatic. The man is multi-talented. He can quote Robert Frost in 1 minute and do the tango the next. I don't believe this. This is obscene. She's actually introducing him, and he's waltzing across the floor, kicking his legs. Who does he think he is? If he starts to moonwalk, I'm out of here. He's smiling like a hyena. Don't have a major heart attack, Mr. Bartell. I can guarantee you we're not going to be tripping over each other to give you mouth to mouth. How can anyone be so happy about making such a fool out of himself? He tells us we're going to learn the foxtrot first. John Robble wants to know what's the point of learning something straight out of the Dark Ages. Danny Kim wants to know if he's trying to turn us into pansies. Shauna Whitaker tells him there's no way she'll dance with just any geek in the class, and if he doesn't let her choose her own partner, she'll go to Mrs. Lofts. Darla Miller says that it would probably be some kind of abuse or harassment or something if he forced us to. Mr. Bartell is quiet while we all protest. I can see something brewing behind his great bug eyes. Then to all of us he booms in his loudest Shakespeare reading voice, "You'll do it because I said so." That basically shuts us up until again, after he's taken attendance, when he gets that hyena grin again and teaches us stuff like movement and rhythm and partner positions and step combinations and whatever. Then he tells us we have to break into partners, at which point we all groan. Pair up with a boy or a girl, or, as the case may be, who has the same last initial as your own, or, he adds, the closest to it. This is so juvenile, Joanne whines. Mr. Bartell claps his hands because none of us have moved 1 inch. Come on, people. I'm guessing you all passed kindergarten or you wouldn't be here. It's not too hard to figure it out. Let's see. B, B, B. No B's. C, C. Miss Collins. I am going to die. I'm actually going to die right here on the spot. No kidding. Mr. Bartell is walking towards me. Mr. Bartell is bowing to me. Mr. Bartell is taking hold of my hand. May I request this dance? This is truly the single most humiliating event of my entire life. I wish I'd stayed down at 90 foot. I wish I'd tripped up on a root and broken my foot. I wish I'd been kidnapped by a UFO and forced to submit to inhuman experiments. Anything other than having to dance with Mr. Bartell. I can't even look at him, let alone remember what he just taught us. Miss Collins? I can hear Joanne and my other so-called friends snickering. Huh? May I request this dance? Like, do I have a choice? I guess so, I mumble into my hair. Mr. Bartell turns towards the class and bellows 1/2 inch in my ear. Now, gentlemen, what have I just demonstrated? No one has a clue what the answer is. It's called proper etiquette, gentlemen. It's called proper etiquette, and it is proper etiquette to ask for the privilege to dance with your partner, and I want all of you to demonstrate proper etiquette, and the young ladies will respond accordingly. There's all this shuffling around, which I don't really see because I'm too busy staring at the floor, but like all 30 guys repeat what Mr. Bartell asked me, and with the enthusiasm of a bunch of dead cod, I might add. I'm not sure what the proper responses are supposed to be, but I mostly hear answers like, Get serious and all right, but only because I need the marks. Mr. Bartell drags me to the CD player, starts his majorly bad music, if you can even call it that, and while he jerks me back and forth and around, hollers out orders to the class. All right, people, the box step. 8 counts. Quick, 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 quick. His breath is the worst swamp in the deepest depths of Borneo, and he's sweating on my head. Forward, touch, side, together. I wish I were made of mercury. I could slip right out of his arms, slither across the gym, and roll out the door. Backward, touch, side, together. Grunt, grunt. Miss Collins. There's a moldy blast in my face, and I realize he's talking to me. Yes, I say. You should look at your partner. Mr. Bartell, the point here is I don't want to. Now, I suppose if you looked like Matt Damon, it's possible I could work up the nerve. But you are 15 galaxies away from looking like him, so I'd really rather not. I have to try real hard to look at him. Once more, through. Class, count 1. You weren't in English class this morning. I have to look at him this time because I'm not sure if he's talking to me or if the question is part of this bizarre dance ritual. Realizing it isn't, and with my imagination stifled because of the air in here, I say, I went home with a headache. I see. Count 2, left and right, feet together. And are you feeling better? Hold on. Wait just a minute here. This is proper etiquette. Are you allowed to discuss someone skipping out when you're dancing with them or their personal health? Yes, I say, I feel better. Excellent! Step to your right, your weight onto your right. We will be discussing the final chapters on Wednesday. Be sure to read them. Good job! Everyone bow to your partner and be sure to practice your box step for next class. What are the chances?